Once back in King's Landing, a tournament was held in honor of the new hand of the king. Cersei, however, publicly forbade her husband, the king, from participating, an action which Varys the Spider suspected was part of her scheme to embarrass Robert and actually provoke him into entering the tourney so he might be killed in the contest. But in the end, Robert was convinced by others not to participate. After the youngest Lannister sibling, Tyrion, was arrested by Catelyn Stark in the Riverlands, Cersei confronted her husband and demanded retribution, insulting the king and questioning his manhood when he refused to act rashly. The king, enraged by her comments, hit her in a burst of anger, but Cersei merely replied she would wear the mark as a badge of honor. Cersei, still conspiring to have her husband killed, convinced her cousin, Lancel Lannister, to bring fortified wine during a hunting trip with the king to ensure Robert was properly drunk and less able to defend himself. While Robert was away, Eddard Stark met with the queen and revealed that he'd learned the truth about her children's origins and warned her that he would tell the king upon his return, advising that she take her children and leave the capital at once, lest Robert kill them all in his rage. But Cersei had no intention of leaving the castle, further bolstered by the words of Sansa Stark, who'd come to her and confessed that her father was making arrangements to send his daughters out of the city. Fortunately for the queen, her schemes against her husband at last paid off, and Robert returned fatally wounded from his hunt. Ned Stark, unable to tell his friend the truth in his final hours, attempted to seize the Iron Throne by other means in the name of the true heir Stannis Baratheon. But he was betrayed by Peter Baelish, leading to the arrest of the Hand of the King. Cersei had successfully defended the Lannister position in King's Landing, and so began to consolidate power as Queen Regent for her young son, King Joffrey Baratheon. Ultimately, Cersei did not harm Eddard Stark, knowing this would make war with the North inevitable, and so made a deal to have him sent to the Wall in exchange for his confession and repentance. But her son proved impulsive and reckless, ignoring his mother's wishes and ordering the execution of the Lord of the North. As a result, conflict erupted all over the continent in the War of the Five Kings, and so Cersei requested aid from her father Tywin, who was marching his armies to the Riverlands to deal with Stark and Tully forces. Unable to go south at the moment, Tywin sent his youngest son, the clever dwarf Tyrion Lannister, in his place to serve as temporary hand of the king to put the capital city in order. Cersei, however, was unwilling to give up control, especially to her hated little brother, and so the two struggled for power, with Tyrion proving the more wise and strategically gifted of the two, even poisoning the queen so she might be bedridden for a time. After discovering that Grand Maester Pycelle was spying for the queen, Tyrion had him arrested, then making arrangements for Cersei's daughter, Myrcella, to wed Tristan Martell in order to secure the allegiance of Dorne. When the queen attempted to send her son Tommen to safety away from the city in advance of the invasion of King's Landing by Stannis Baratheon, Tyrion again interfered, capturing the child before he could leave, and then using the boy as a hostage to prevent Cersei from torturing a prostitute who she wrongly believed was in a relationship with Tyrion. During the Battle of Blackwater Bay, Cersei invited all the noble ladies of court to dine with her in the Red Keep. However, she also invited Sir Ilyn Payne, who was instructed to kill the women in case of defeat to prevent their capture by the enemy. As the fighting raged on, the queen became worried for her son, the king, and sent for him to be taken to safety. However, after seeing their ruler retreat from the front lines, the city defense forces lost morale and began to lose control of the Mudgate. Although Tyrion did everything possible to bolster their defenses, making Stannis pay for every inch of the city, the Lannister forces were on the verge of defeat until Tywin Lannister and Randyll Tarly led a combined army from the Westerlands and Reach as reinforcements, pushing Stannis back out to sea and saving King's Landing. Tyrion, who'd been injured in the fighting, attacked by a Kingsguard, possibly at the order of Cersei or Joffrey, was unconscious for several days, and when he awoke, discovered that Cersei had taken the opportunity to make herself seem like the hero who kept the city together, while Tyrion was blamed for any problems. Her focus then turned to preparing for her son Joffrey's wedding to Lady Margaery Tyrell, daughter of Mace Tyrell, in order to cement their new alliance. But Joffrey was poisoned during the wedding feast, with a grief-stricken Cersei blaming Tyrion for the murder and having him arrested. Sansa Stark, Tyrion's wife, was also ordered arrested, but she'd already escaped King's Landing with the aid of Littlefinger, who once again was behind the intrigue, working with the Tyrells to assassinate the king. Tyrion demanded trial by combat fight, with Oberyn Martell serving as his champion against Sir Gregor Clegane. But in the end, Oberyn was killed in the fighting. Tyrion was set to be executed, but was rescued by his brother Jaime with the help of Varys, who aided in his escape. But the youngest Lannister sibling did not leave the city right away, first murdering the prostitute Shae and his father Tywin with a crossbow before departing. Cersei, enraged by Tyrion's escape and devastated by the loss of her father, was left bitter, resentful, and paranoid, beginning to rely more heavily on alcohol. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Nantine the Blackburned Ewido, Galvaelra 8 Hands, and Ryanon. If you'd like to help the channel with a monthly donation, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more.